Hi there, folks, and welcome to the Road to Omaha. Perfect Game College Baseball. This is what we do, but a very unique edition. It is the Road to Omaha, and it's presented by Soldier Sports, the official bat of Perfect Game. My name is Daron Sutton, and I'm honored to break down what we just learned about the next month of our lives as passionate baseball fans in the field of 64. Great Cozart joins us, who coached at this level, an assistant who, and as a player who went to the NCAA tournament multiple times, a decade plus, as a head coach at the Division I level as well in Perfect Games, director of scouting at the college level. Also on this show, Kerrick will join us, the head coach of Mizzou, playing for the very first year as the head coach inside the SEC. I guarantee you his insights are going to be incredible on this show. I'm going to bring in Craig, and it's appropriate that Craig is out on the road. 'Tis the season as a dad with two of your sons wrapping up college baseball regular seasons. One's going to be playing on. We'll talk about that. You're out scouting, but you're out on the road, place to place, taking care of your young sons in college, making sure they get off to the next spot. Yes, Dad?
Oh yeah, what a great time of year, huh? So the show was exciting, great to see those kids, especially the first timers or the ones that hadn't been to the NCAA tournament in a long time, celebrating. You want to see that enthusiasm. So as always, a lot of controversy with the field of 64. A lot of prognosticators, right, Sut? But you know what? It's a tough job, and what a beautiful time of year. It's going to be a very exciting tournament.
Yeah, it's an incredible time of year. Let's start with the kind of the headline, and I'd love to get your thoughts. The SEC has 11 teams. That's a record. They have eight host sites. So the SEC is certainly a challenging conference, and Kerrick's going to talk about that, in which to play. But the SEC rewarded top to bottom with 11 teams going to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, all-time record with 11 teams. For the longest time, as we were in this last month heading into the postseason, they talked about those SEC teams getting to 13 wins, and it turned out every one of them that did get to 13 wins is in the postseason. So historically, 38% of the time a team in the SEC had gotten to 13 wins, they were in the tournament. We were unsure about Alabama and Florida. They were kind of the last two in the SEC that we weren't sure, but both of them got bids. There's a very clear reason why the committee chose them. They looked strongly at strength of schedule, non-conference strength of schedule. They didn't really talk a lot about RPI, but yes, the SEC gets rewarded. And then kind of the story within the story, the two seeds in the SEC. The ACC has 5 host sites. Every single one of the ACC host sites has an SEC team as the 2 seed. So we're getting to see those two power conferences go at it at those host sites. So it's going to be great to see the outcome. But you know what? I anticipate a ton of upsets, Sut, if you can call a 2 seed winning, an upset, because the quality of our 2 seeds across the country are unbelievable. We can dive into that more later if you want to.
We will do so, certainly. I want to go here, and it's personal, but it's definitely a story. It was talked about a lot as the brackets were revealed, and closing the doors on the Pac-12. I got to call the final regular season weekend on TV. I got to call the second to last game ever in the Pac-12 conference. I was humbled and honored by the opportunity, certainly because it's about the kids and their families. But I think whether it was sentimental or not, doesn't really matter, because these teams are going on to other conferences. But Oregon State and Arizona are hosting. I think that's a big, big story. I think everyone assumed, of course, that Oregon State, with how high they had played all year, would be given as a host. Everybody kept saying, well, if Arizona does, and they did everything you asked them to do,
Absolutely.
and then they were rewarded with the host, right?
Yeah, rewarded. But you know what? I think our time together has really opened my eyes to really dive more into the West Coast side of things. And you know what? Arizona is the regular season champions of the Pac-12, and they run to the tournament championship in the Big 12, and they're rewarded by being the 13th seed. I don't know if I really feel that that's the way they should have been represented. Obviously, yes, hosting is great, but I do feel like they should have been a higher seed than 13. Great to see Oregon State. Obviously, anytime you can get a tournament in Corvallis, it's outstanding. But great to see both of those hosting. Another thing that I wanted to point out while we're on that West Coast theme, Sut, that I felt like was amiss by the committee was what they did in UC Santa Barbara. All 4 of those are West Coast teams. And I felt it was a little bit unfair that San Diego didn't get a chance to go somewhere else regionally, to where you have more opportunities for those West Coast teams to win and get to the next level. But if you got UC Santa Barbara, San Diego, Oregon, and Fresno State all in that same region. San Diego and Oregon very well could win that region and go to a super regional. So I thought it was unfortunate that they didn't get to kind of spread their wings a little bit and move off the West Coast.
Lamar wins 44 games. Tennessee won 50 times. Texas A&M won 44 times. There were a handful of teams that won in the mid-40s, but Lamar wins 44 times. They were only based on their lives able to play 4 Q1 games. They went 3-1 in those Q1 games, but Lamar, one of the unique teams, a mid-major team on the outside looking in.
Yeah, and this is where you talk about how appropriate is the RPI or the strength of schedule metric when you're talking about location, where you are geographically. But the committee put a high emphasis on strength of schedule. Their strength of schedule was 205. Their non-conference strength of schedule was 257. And they played 4 quad one games, as you talked about. However, Lamar had the best season historically that program has ever had with 44 wins. So it's tough for those kids. Do you think that they should have an opportunity to be in the tournament? Absolutely. I think it's time to expand the tournament. We've talked about that before. It's time to expand. We need to get, beyond this field of 64, move into that 70-some team range, because a lot of these teams like the College of Charleston, or Charleston as they're being called now, they deserve to be in. But we can talk about many of those opportunities. How about the northern schools? Xavier, their metrics matched up very good. 40 in RPI, strength of schedule 19, non-conference strength of schedule 2. Okay, and 7 and 12 against quad one teams. They're out. But as far as what the committee said their metrics were, Xavier was in line with all that, other than the fact that they finished 4th in the Big East in the regular season, and that might have been what ended up keeping them on the outside looking in.
Can I take a glass half full approach? I know it's easy to talk about the teams around. There's a couple more teams I want to talk about being out, not because they were wronged, but because we're going to miss out on special players. You know one of them very, very well. But can I take a glass half full approach with the growth of the Fun Belt, aka the Sun Belt? Troy played well enough to be in, and Skylar Meade coached well enough to have his team in. But this is a year now where we're talking about the Sun Belt needing to have 6. They already have 5, and it's a very fair thing to say that Troy could have easily been the 6th. Kudos to the Sun Belt through over a generation who they've become. That's incredible, for me anyway.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a great league, and I agree with you with Troy. Georgia Southern made a great run in the Sun Belt tournament. They both finished ahead of Coastal. Now, look, let's put it out there right now. Are we glad to see Gary Gilmore in the NCAA tournament for his last year, his last go-around? Absolutely. But we can touch on this as well. It's obvious that representation on the committee matters, okay? And we can get to that in a second. However, Troy swept Coastal and finished ahead of them in the regular season in the Sun Belt. So how do they get left out if Coastal gets in? That's not a knock on Coastal. That's just talking about the quality of what Troy had done, with that brand new stadium. Those kids deserved it, and that looks like a significant oversight on the committee side.
So I'm gonna go before we bring in Kerrick and talk briefly about each one of these stops, these regionals. There's 3 players that I'm going to bring up. There's probably 50 that we all wanted to see in the postseason, to be clear. One of them is Peyton Tolley, who tragically recently lost his mom. We knew she was battling a severe illness. He's special. He's a future pro. TCU's on the outside looking in. The other one is Hawaiian Caleb Lomavita, who went to Cal. Coach Mike Knoop, they're on the outside looking in. They played a really, really good year, and that's tough that they don't have a 4th. And the other one is your son, part of a unique conference, the 8th best conference in the Southern Conference, and only has 1 team. All the other conferences with, multiple teams, meaning 2. I'll just stop at 2. American 12, Big West 13, Missouri Valley 11. The Southern, of course, they had just 1 in Wofford. Your son, Greensboro, had an incredible year. Coach Ellis, a top 25 in RPI, or I should say in OPS in the country, looking at his numbers, a 12-16 OPS. 3 players we hoped we could see in the postseason. All 3 teams on the outside looking in for various reasons we care about them.
Yeah, no doubt. Obviously what Caleb Lomavita has done is tremendous. He's put himself on the map as a very athletic catcher. I thought what Cal did, was going to give them a strong opportunity to get into the field. The non-conference strength of schedule 193, but they were 5-2 against quad 1. And I think East Carolina, who's a host, is also 5-2 in quad 1s. So, again, there's so many different scenarios that you look at, and I still have to go back to representation matters. But again, and then you look at the Southern Conference, as you said, Sanford's an unbelievable baseball team. I mean, very, very good. They went on the road. They played as good as they possibly could in non-conference. UNCG has had some huge wins in the midweek. They gave Wake Forest their first loss of the year in the midweek early on in February. Of course, they beat NC State on the road. So you sit there and talk about ETSU has the best RPI in the league. So, there's just a lot of different scenarios that would have said that, the Southern Conference does deserve to have more than just one bid. And then, yes, Peyton Tolley, I mean, TCU, unfortunately, them finishing ninth in the Big 12 really drug them down. They really struggled out of the gates. They got swept several times in the first couple of weeks of Big 12 play. And, that ultimately just kind of held them back, even though they were playing their best baseball at the end of the year. Another area where we can just talk about the different scenarios and the guys that we're going to miss out on. And that's what makes our game so special.
Yeah, it's interesting. And for me, you could spend the entire show on who didn't make it, who missed out, and why it occurred. But again, these are just great players that aren't going to get mentioned much more. So, including your son and what he was able to do, overcoming a lot. But we are going to see a ton of great players, and that's what's exciting. Drew Burress maybe sneaks in as a freshman. Georgia Tech, are they in? Are they in? Well, Drew Burress is in, and you're going to get to see that compact power. So that we're just getting started. This is our road to Omaha, literally the road. Look at Cozy. He's on the road to Omaha, presented by Soldier Sports, the official bat of Perfect Game. We're going to have a great conversation with Kerrick Jackson. He will jump into our mosh pit, which is breaking down college baseball's field of 64. Cozy thinks it should be 72 or even more. This is Perfect Game College Baseball, the road to Omaha. Wouldn't it figure that when you have a show like this, the only guy that's prognosticating and answering questions about the field is the guy sitting in his boring and dry studio? Otherwise, they're out. You got one in a car. And then let's bring in Kerrick Jackson, who on this Memorial Day weekend, as we record this episode, is in the beautiful backyard. It's celebration time with family. Kerrick, thanks for hanging out with Cozy and I. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys reaching out to me and having me on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to start with you. I know Craig might follow up before we get to the different brackets. For you, first year at Mizzou and taking on the SEC, we can get into. You had so many memorable wins: Kentucky and Georgia, South Carolina, LSU, Miss State. You swept Florida. Now that you've settled just a little bit, and it's probably hard to settle, what are some of your high points and great memories this year, Kerrick? Your first year in this conference.
Yeah, I think we grew as the year went along, and we were just the whole year our focus was on just playing good baseball and being consistent. And unfortunately, we never found that consistency piece, but I think we continued to grow and develop as the year went on and made some improvements along the way, especially when you look as many first year players as we had on the field. So those guys got a lot of experience this year, and looking forward to bringing them back. And now they know what it's all about and tackling this thing head on.
Hey, how good is this conference? Just you give us a perspective. You playing it?
It's a beast. When you look at the fact that we have 11 teams from the league that are in a regional, that says everything that you needed to say. And then you got 2 teams that we're bringing in next year that are also in regional. So you could arguably say that that's the majority of our league. And as we continue to grow and develop, at some point, I think we're going to be in a position where they're going to have to put all 16 teams in because the league is just that competitive. When you look at it, when we're playing that 30-game conference schedule, it's going to be hard to leave people out regardless of what their conference record is.
Yeah, Coach. Talk about, that weekend against Florida, because I don't care who you're playing, anybody across the nation, sweeping them is really, really hard, right? So, what did you guys find right there, and what can you take from that series to carry on into what you want to build with this program? Because, again, it doesn't matter. Obviously, Florida is unbelievable. Anybody in the SEC is tremendous, but to sweep is so difficult in today's day and time. What do you guys take from that?
Yeah, at the time I thought, I told our team I thought those were some belief builder wins, right? That's obviously the idea of coming in and everybody wanting to win, but really getting our guys to understand what it means and how you go about winning. And that weekend showed it. I mean, when you have two where you come back, and you get two, big wins at the end of the games, become clutch. And when you have a team the caliber of Florida being able to do that and get a sweep, I think anybody that you sweep in the league is tremendous, but when you can sweep a team like that at home, I really thought that was going to propel us moving forward into doing some things, and we fell short of that, and we still had some wins in there, but we came up short a bunch of times too. So I think for some of our younger kids, it really took hold for them, and for some of our older kids, it still took them a while to kind of try and figure things out.
All right, let's go. I'm gonna tee you guys up one at a time. Then you guys take it back and forth. Let's start with the regional in Knoxville, Tennessee, Southern Miss, Indiana, and then Northern Kentucky. Congratulations out of the Horizon head coach Dizzy Payton for the first time ever bringing that program to the NCAA's. Coach, I'm gonna let you start, Kerrick, this time because you know all about Tennessee. As you hear those four teams, think about that regional. Just your quick thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee, obviously, especially playing at home, they have a huge advantage there. That crowd is going to be crazy. Those guys believe they led the country in home runs this year. That is a powerful offense. They have some good guys that they run out of the back end of the bullpen to shut it down. Probably not necessarily one of their best pitching staffs that they've had, but they have some guys and they piece some things together and they figure out how to get it done. And obviously Northern Kentucky, they took 2 out of 3 from us earlier in the year. And at the time, they were frustrating losses for us because you're at home and, looking at it on paper, those are games that you're supposed to at least win the series. And then you look and see what Dizzy did with that club this year, and they went out and they smacked a bunch of people in the mouth. So he got that thing rolling. And then Southern Miss is Southern Miss. I mean, it's the Golden Eagles are the Golden Eagles. And they figure out a way. They just play good baseball. They've played good baseball forever. They're gritty. They got a chip on their shoulder. But they're a team that's been in a regional every year in and year out for the last 5 or 6 consecutive years, if not longer. So those guys do a great job there. So, and then Indiana is coming up, kind of coming into their own a little bit with what those guys are doing there. Derek Simmons does a great job of recruiting. They had a young club a couple years back. Those kids have gotten older and gotten experience. So that's going to be a pretty quality regional.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I'm excited for Christian Ostrander, his first year at the helm there at Southern Miss, to get his team going. They were touch and go early on in the season and just played better as the year went on. So they're going to be a force to reckon with. And, I talked about this a week ago, I think, Sut, how 2 years ago, Tennessee hit as many home runs as people they walked on the mound. They're 20 off of that pace this year, but imagine that. I think they've hit 146 home runs and walked 166 batters on the year. So when you hit as many home runs as people as you walk, you're really difficult to handle.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that a team could be 4th in the country in OPS and 4th in the country in ERA. That feels like a number 1 seed in the nation to me. East Carolina host. That may be a separate discussion later on in this show, but East Carolina host. Tom Walters' team is there. Bradley LaCroix's team is there with VCU, Wake Forest, and then Evansville is there. Cozy, I'll let you talk with this one first.
Yeah. Well, obviously, East Carolina kind of scuffled down the stretch. They got swept at Tulane, who Tulane ended up winning the conference tournament. East Carolina did not make it to the championship game of the Americans, so there was a lot of speculation that they may not be in position to host. They may have just fallen short, but there's not very many places that are better atmospheres than there in Greenville at East Carolina. And here's the thing that will be absolutely must-watch TV. When Chase Burns takes the mound in the jungle versus East Carolina in game 2, assuming that Wake Forest takes care of ECU and ECU takes care of Evansville, I guarantee you Wake Forest is not throwing Chase Burns against VCU. So when he takes the mound in that atmosphere, it is going to be off the charts as far as electric is concerned.
Yeah, no question. I mean, you obviously, if you're Cliff, you're excited about being able to host a regional, and then you see that you get Wake Forest in that thing, and with the with the way that they are, I think those parks play very similar as far as how the ball travels in both of those yards. So, and those are both offensive clubs. that feast off of the long ball, and obviously Wake is rolling out some power arms. So that will be a very interesting regional. And again, being there and being in the jungle and being in that atmosphere, it's one of the best atmospheres in college baseball. We played there last year when I was at Memphis, and so that is going to be another one that's going to be a powerhouse regional. And obviously, people don't want to put the cart before the horse in that situation, but knowing that those two regionals are matched up, if Wake does end up coming out of that thing, and then you get Chase Burns back at Rocky Top, that'll be something special.
Right back at you, Kerrick, with
yeah.
Oklahoma and Skip hosting a regional. Chris Pollard's Duke team is there. UConn is there. ORU, they were the darlings a season ago. They had to win a tournament. This was a rebuilding year for them, but they won at the right time. 266 their RPI, but they're in. Bottom line is they're in. So that's a unique one, too. A couple of Oklahoma schools. UConn makes a trip out. Kerrick, your thoughts on that Skip's regional at OU?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at it back a couple years ago when they were kind of on fumes there at OU, and then all of a sudden they end up in the World Series, and that thing just takes off. And Skip does a good job, and the guys on the staff, and I know they've had some staff changes, but they do a good job there. And to be able to get them back to hosting a regional in that environment, like I said, ORU, not the same team that they were last year. Again, another team that we played at Memphis, and they're very similar to me to this year's Kentucky team, right? They knew who they were. They threw strikes. They had quality bats. And this year, I think they're one of the better teams in the horizon. I think the familiarity of winning that league and getting into a regional will be beneficial to them. But then you got Duke, and obviously I think everybody could stand on a very firm argument that Duke probably should have hosted. So you appreciate the fact that OU is hosting, but then again, similar to Cliff and ECU and getting Wake, and now you got Duke coming in here and being able to have them in that situation, a team that was probably on the bubble of hosting. So that'll be a very interesting and competitive regional.
Yeah, what a great run that Duke went on. How about the ACC tournament? Since Chris Pollard has been there, when it's hosted by Charlotte, they're 8-0 in Charlotte, so they haven't lost a game yet, but they make the run to the tournament. Let's not forget about UConn. Nobody plays on the road more and plays more difficult early in the season than UConn. Nobody. So we can't take them for granted. We know that they're always prepared and ready to go. So very, very interesting regional for sure.
Rich Wallace, he gets a chance to take his Central Florida team not too far away from where he is in Orlando to Florida State. Florida State hosts a regional. Brad Bohannon's Alabama team, and my favorite Northeasterner, who's been a Florida transplant forever, Steve Trimper, with that strong Northeast accent down there in Florida and to land at Stetson. It's Florida State, it's Alabama, it's UCF, and it's Stetson. Cozy, go.
Well, how about Link Jarrett, right? Getting things back on track. They missed the regional last year for the first time, and I think it was like 40 years. And not only do they get back into the tournament, they're a national 8 seed. That's what they hired Link Jarrett to do. Now, Rich Wallace, like a son to me, recruited him, signed him, coached him at UCF, coached with him for many years. Now he's back at his alma mater, and in his first year takes him back to the NCAA tournament. And I've been in the NCAA tournament 9 times as a player and a coach, and 7 times it's ended in Tallahassee. So that'll tell you what I feel about that situation.
Yeah, very ironic that you got UCF in that regional with Florida State, where Rich was the assistant coach there, and so being in that environment, I've known Rich for a long time. Very happy for him and what he did there at UCF. Another team that we played last year that they were on the quality team last year, and they were on the verge of being able to do that. And then, like you said, looking at what Florida State was able to do just 1 year removed from not making a regional. I think it was 44 consecutive years that they made a regional. So for him to be able to not only return them back to being in a regional, but returning them to hosting, couldn't say better things about what he's been able to do in his time there. And again, another powerhouse competitive regional that's going to be fun to watch.
So I promise, Kerrick, since you're taking this kind of time on what should be a barbecue family day for us, there's always going to be a Mizzou angle when we go in and out of break. Here's my angle going to break. I'd love your thoughts. Taylor Stadium, beautiful spot. You guys set a collective attendance record. You went up to 40,000 fans this year. Your thoughts on your attendance, and I know for you it's just starting. I think you're going to tell me that's just the beginning, but how proud were you in your first year that you guys set a record for most attendance, right around 40,000?
Yeah, I think it just shows the potential of what we're capable of doing, and everybody was excited to come out and see what the team was going to be about this year. And again, we fell short of some of the goals that we had in mind, but I think everybody recognized that we moved the needle, and that things are moving in the right direction, and there's going to be continued excitement about what we're doing and how we're going to go about it. And like I said earlier, with the guys that have had the experience they had this year as freshmen and first year players, now being able to come back next year. Going to be some really exciting and fun things happening in Taylor Stadium in the future.
We're going to come out of a quick break with some of the commits that are coming to Mizzou. You're going to be blown away with how many top 500 players. Those are perfect game rankings. Kerrick sees them with his own eyes, obviously, but elite players that he is bringing onto campus. We'll pause for just a moment. It's the road to Omaha on Perfect Game College Baseball, presented by Soldier Sports, the official bat of Perfect Game. The road to Omaha continues, presented by Soldier Sports, the official bat of Perfect Game, and in part by Mizzou Baseball, because Kerrick Jackson is joining us as an analyst, taking time out of his day on past a Memorial Day weekend, but on this Memorial Day. Ethan Bagwell, right-handed pitcher. Titus Sissel is from St. Charles, Missouri. I look on down, Victor Cristal. I see Paul Green, Justin Hart, Deshaun Morgan. I see so many talented 24s, and maybe you'll tell me they're all not making it to you. But gosh, I see the Mizzou commits, and it blows my doors off, Kerrick. These are your guys. This is your first. This is my class at Mizzou. How proud are you of the incoming 24s?
Very excited for this group. Like you said, young, talented group. I think when you look on the position player side, it captures what we're looking for, which is we want a combination of speed and power. We want the ability to be able to do different things on the offensive side of the ball, as well as from a defensive perspective. The more athletes that you have on the field, the more hits you're able to take away. And as we know, the name of the game here is scoring runs. So if we can keep people off the bases, we'll put ourselves in a good situation. Then when you look at those arms, again, we talk about basically wanting athletic, competitive strike throwers. And that group of arms that we're bringing in, they all kind of check those boxes and put us in a position to do some powerful things. And like you said, there's some guys on that list that professional baseball is very interested in, and so we'll see what happens. And as I tell those guys, listen, at the end of the day, you have to do what's in your best interest, understanding the landscape now of professional baseball and what that looks like with reduced teams, smaller roster sizes, smaller numbers in minor league organizations, and just getting these kids to understand it's a business. And that you have to make business decisions and not dream decisions. And it was a dream 5 years ago, but now when you're having those conversations, it's no longer a dream. So just make sure you're making the right business decision.
Boy, and what I'm loving about it, and we'll get right to this next regional, I see Illinois, Missouri, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Texas. Like, it's all over the map. Congratulations on this 24 class. Arkansas Regional, Kerrick, I'll go right back at you. Coach Van Horn, Lane Burroughs' La Tech team is there, along with Pete Hughes, who's never, ever a boring interview, as we all know. And then Andy Sawyers. Andy Sawyers takes Southeast Missouri. They're out of the Ohio Valley. 132 in the RPI, but they won the Ohio Valley. As you take a look at the Van Horn, Arkansas Regional, Kerrick, your thoughts?
A lot of connections there in that regional from coaching trees and, quality programs. And, again, Arkansas, another team that we played. That was our opening conference weekend. Welcome to the SEC. In Fayetteville. So we had some kids that got baptized in that situation down there. And, this is not your typical Arkansas team that you've seen in the past where they've been very offensive, but they do pitch it well. They're going to play good defense. And their pitching is going to be in a situation to keep them in. And, when you talk about La Tech and what they've been able to do and what they've done in the past, Andy Sawyers, again, played at Nebraska under Coach Van Horn, coached there with him for a little bit. So a lot of interesting connections in that regional. I think that's going to be a very good competitive regional. But I think this year, I think Arkansas is 33-3 at home. So when you factor that in, they definitely have the advantage there, especially when people start calling them hogs. I've seen kids melt in that situation. So it will be a very competitive environment. And, those older teams will have a chance to go in there and keep themselves in that situation.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Kansas State does. We've talked about Kansas State a lot on this show. Pete Hughes was very vocal that he felt like his team should have been in the NCAA tournament last year, and I don't disagree with him. He made a concerted effort this year in his non-conference segment to go out and schedule really, really good opponents. And while they didn't win as many as they wanted to, obviously, early on, it paid dividends at the end. They played well. In the Big 12 down the stretch, they have two potential first rounders with Culpepper and Neighbors. So just an exciting club for them to watch. So you know what? I'm excited to see Coach Hughes back in the NCAA tournament. But Arkansas is a tough place to go.
What I'll share with you guys too, I've been doing this thing long enough that my former players are coaching. Rudy Darrow, who's the pitching coach at K-State, played for me at Nichols. And so he and I still talk all the time. And so it's interesting to see, and I'm excited for him to be in that situation, be in that environment.
Absolutely.
Awesome follow-up. Coach O'Connor, host at Virginia. And of course, this is what you talked about, this ACC, SEC 1-2 thing, Cozy. I'll let you start with Mississippi State coming in. We love Mike Hampton because he came into our Brooklyn studios in cold February and talked about his team. So it's the PG Studios kiss. Selfishly, we'll give Mike Hampton that at St. John's. And then the Ivy League champs are Penn. So Virginia hosting, that's a fun regional.
Yeah, very fun regional. And doesn't the staff there, doesn't Oaks and company just continue to do it every year? You might as well just pencil them in as a host. I forget how many times they've hosted now, but it's an incredible number, well into the teens. The interesting thing, and we're going to see how this all plays out. And I know Coach Jackson will have something to say about it, but the SEC has infiltrated every ACC host site as a 2 seed. You know what? We're going to be able to settle that argument on the field on which conference is better or deeper. You know what? It's good to see Mississippi State back in the post season. Obviously, they've had a ton of pressure on them. Justin Parker is the new pitching coach there and has settled things down. They've continuously gotten better throughout the year, and the work that he put in with those arms is what's got them in position to be a 2 seed in Charlottesville this coming weekend.
Yeah, for sure. We finished our conference play at Mississippi State. So being able to get in there, and we were able to win the last game of that series, but they got that thing rolling, and now they got their center fielder back. And obviously his presence was felt, Jack, in the conference tournament. And he stepped on the scene right away and just kind of got things rolling. But, I know Dakota Jordan was struggling a little bit in that conference tournament, but that's one dude that my man swings with intent. He's looking to do damage every time he lets it eat. And then you got those two arms, their first two arms. They can pitch with anybody in the country. It'll be very interesting, them going into that environment and with the way they finished their year. And like you said, it's good to see them back in there. Jake and I have a really good relationship. Lim and I, as assistant coaches, were on the recruiting trail together. So I'm excited to see those guys get after it.
Selfishly, this is my favorite regional because I live in Arizona and I was seeing what Chip Hale's team would do this year, and the Pac-12 is closing. So selfishly, this is one of my favorite regionals, this next one. And certainly Kerrick would love your thoughts. Arizona pitches to a 4.33 ERA, which is really tough to do in that yard. Hefner's team at Dallas Baptist pitches better than that. So you got two really good pitching teams. You got Randy Macy in his final ride, even though he's a young pup, it's his final ride at West Virginia. And Greg Wallace is, again, doing good things following Andy Stankiewicz at Grand Canyon. What are some of the things that pop out for that Arizona regional for you, Kerrick?
I think you're looking at all teams that are really, really competitive. I think you can say that obviously about all the regionals, but when you look at that and look at the depth of those teams and the history of success that those teams have had, that will be a very interesting one because anybody can come out of there. Like you said, Dallas Baptist pitches it. Maisie has been doing it, like you said, hasn't been doing it long, but this is his last year. So I'm sure those guys are fired up and ready to send him out on a good note. Arizona, like I said, with Chip Hale and what he's doing and coming in there and getting those things going. So that whole regional is going to be very interesting. Grand Canyon obviously came on the scene with Andy, and they've been rolling, and they got some boppers on their roster. So that whole regional will be very, very interesting. We played back in 2012 in that regional. I'm sure the field's not as hard as it was then, but that was definitely an advantage at that time. But yeah, that'll be a very interesting and even though you got those pitching staffs, I think it will be offensive. Just playing at that field.
Yeah. Well, I think Arizona, quite honestly, is underappreciated. Besides Tennessee, who had a share of the regular season SEC championship and ran the table in Hoover to win the tournament, unless I'm mistaken, Arizona is the only other Power 5 program that won the regular season as well as the conference tournament. That's so hard to do. I mean, it's unbelievable. And Arizona, just kind of under the radar the whole year, has been right there. Everybody talked about Oregon State and that high-powered offense, and Travis Pizzana and the superstar that he is. But Arizona just grinded it out every day. And it's great to see J.J. Weatherholt at West Virginia healthy. He really battled with the hamstring issues early in the year. And that guy has all of a sudden put himself back into that top 10 pick, consideration in the coming Major League Baseball draft with what he's done in the last month.
Get ready in regionals for the name Clark Candiotti. You have to be old like the three of us to remember Dad. Tom Candiotti, the knuckleballer. His son Clark is about as well-traveled as you can be in college baseball, but he's home in his final year. He's incredible. He's got a pair of complete games. That's right, 2. Tell me any big leaguers that have 2 complete games. Candiotti on this pitching staff is a great name. North Carolina, the North Carolina Regional. Jay Johnson's team is there. You got Wofford, who is there. Coach J.J. Edwards out of the Southern. Then Long Island University, Dan Perillo, they win the Northeast. Cozy, the UNC Regional. Coach Forbes, 4 in the RPI. They're the number 1 seed in their own host regional.
Yeah, Boshemer plays small, okay, especially when it heats up in Chapel Hill. So the ball's going to be jumping out of there. UNC is really impressive offensively. They have tremendous balance. They use the big part of the field. They're just as prone to hit the ball out the other way as they are to the pull side. Obviously, LSU is arguably the hottest team in the nation other than probably Tennessee. So we know that they're starting to find their way. They're pitching at a high level. And so those are the 2 marquee programs there. We anticipate a lot of baseballs leaving the yard. But what people may not know is the Wofford Terriers led the nation most of the year in team batting average, batting over 340 for the majority of the season. And they just ran through the SoCon tournament, so they're going to be tough to deal with. And great to see Long Island getting down into Chapel Hill to see what they can do with it.
Yeah, Kerrick, how do you see that North Carolina, LSU, Wofford, LIU combination when they all come together?
Yeah, I think when you look at LIU and what he's done there in a short period of time, they've kind of emerged on the scene as just being one of those small mid-major programs that every once in a while they'll have an arm or they'll have a bat. They've been pretty arm-heavy with some guys that have been able to come out and just surprise you on the bump. But then when you look at what Jay's doing and obviously coming off a national championship, it seems like, unfortunately for SEC teams, there's that World Series national championship hangover the year after. And when they came in here, they were kind of feeling it a little bit. But I think they're playing. They got their lineup where they want it to be. They made some adjustments there. They got their pitchers doing the right thing. So that's always a dangerous club just because they have a history and tradition of winning. And so that's just built in the culture. They expect to win. They expect to be in Omaha. So the moment never gets too big for those guys. So that will be, again, another one of those where in North Carolina you're excited about hosting, and then all of a sudden, hey, here comes LSU, arguably the biggest of powerhouses coming in as a 2 seed.
Don't let that cozy laugh take us to a quick pause. We're halfway home. 32 of the teams we've talked about, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm loving the insights of both you guys. I know our viewers are enjoying it as well. The road to Omaha, Perfect Game College Baseball, presented by Soldier Sports, the official bat of Perfect Game. Perfect Game College Baseball, the road to Omaha, presented by Soldier Sports, the official bat of Perfect Game. Before we get to the Lexington Regional, the Coach Mingione's Regional, gosh, how do I say this as simply as I can? Kerrick, more teams? Should there be more teams?
100%. Obviously, we were talking earlier as far as what the SEC is going to look like here and what some of these other leagues are going to look like here in the coming years. Excluding some of those teams that are playing in the tougher conferences in the country, just becomes something that just doesn't make sense. And that's me talking from being at Southern University in the SWAC to being at American Conference last year and coaching at Nichols and now being back here at Missouri. You want teams that in there that you believe have an opportunity to get to Omaha, and so I think the more teams that you can add, the better. It adds a little bit something to the tournament if they go and they do that, and I think that's the decision that we should just make and move forward.
Yeah, the representation across the board, I still think that college baseball is on the lower side when you talk about percentage of opportunity, right? The number of teams versus the opportunities that there are out there. Baseball has always been in that 20 to 25% range when the average sport across the board in the NCAA is more in that 30 to 35% range. So just from that perspective, we need more opportunities for our guys to experience postseason.
All right, let's go to Lexington. Cozy, you can start this one off. Mitch Hanna's Indiana State team, they've kind of become a darling out there in the RPI world. Whatever the secret is, they're figuring it out just a little bit. Illinois is there, and the Mid-American champs, Western Michigan out of KZoo, they are there as well. So what do you think of Nick's Regional in Kentucky?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't get done any favors for sure. Indiana State, everybody thought they were going to be a host. They're 10th in the RPI. A continual program that is just on the national level. They figured it out, like you said. They figured out how to schedule and put themselves in position to host each year. But here you are, Kentucky, who just continues to figure out a way to win SEC series. They're the number 2 national seed, and they get a team in Indiana State that should be hosting. They get the Big Ten regular season champs and Western Michigan. So that seems like a little bit of a tough draw, both for Indiana State and Kentucky, as well as the Big Ten regular season champs. So really, really high level of baseball going to be going on there in Lexington.
Yeah, we were fortunate enough that we played Kentucky. We played Illinois last year at Memphis. We played Indiana State. With Kentucky, the one thing that I tell everybody when we talk about them, they just know who they are. Right? They don't try and do anything. They play the way that they play. It fits them. They stay true to that. And in their style of play grows confidence. And just figuring out different ways to win. If they need to hit a home run, they can hit a home run. If they need to double steal, if they need to first and third, if they need to sack push, whatever they need to do to get it done, they're going to get it done. And they've really embodied that. And Nick has done a good job of recruiting kids to that culture and just allowing that thing to grow. And Indiana State, again, very similar to ORU last year. They just played good baseball. They, again, didn't necessarily do anything special, but did everything right. And so when you look at that and look at what that's going to look like for that regional, and then Illinois, we played them probably one of the coldest games I've ever been involved in when we played them at Gateway Grizzlies Field in right outside of St. Louis this year. But a complete lineup from top to bottom. Obviously, it was a midweek game, so we didn't see any weekend arms. But when you look at that offense, they can get it done, like I said, from the leadoff guy to the 9-hole guy. So that'll be another very competitive regional.
Kerrick, I saw the 3-game series, Oregon State, Arizona, that wrapped up the pack in the regular season. I called all 3 games, and in the first 2, Oregon State absolutely destroyed Chip's teams. I mean, they really played strong. And then out of a hat, pulled the championship with a walk-off. They were down, so it was almost a sweep. This is a really good Oregon State team. They pitch well, they hit well. Travis Pisana, obviously one of the great names in all of college baseball. Big West team in Irvine. You have Tulane there, Jay Ullman's team. Mike Silva, the head coach at Nichols. When you look at the Oregon State region, what pops into your head, Kerrick?
Again, I think you look like you talked about with what Oregon State is able to do. You look at what Jay's doing there at Tulane, last year. That was one of the questions that everybody raised because Tulane was in the regional with a well below 500 record. We played them. And then you look, he turned that thing around and won the tournament again back-to-back years. So I think that was a great opportunity for him to say, we are who we are. And then probably one of the most underrepresented stories this year, I think, is what Silva's doing at Nicholls State. I mean, when was the last time Nicholls State won the conference championship? Last year. Before that, when was the last time they won it, right? You pass a lot of schools on your way to Nicholls State. And so to see what Silva has done there with those guys, and they got an arm now. That was a freshman last year when we faced him. This year he's a sophomore. And again, it's another team that knows their identity. I think being down there in the Bayou, they've embraced that. And they will be Coonasses by default and go out there and take it to you. So that'll be a very interesting regional to watch as well.
Yeah, let's not overlook Irvine. They're just as consistent as they can be. I like what Coach Jackson talks about. Teams understanding their identity. UC Irvine understands what they are. You wouldn't say they play a boring brand of baseball, but they just grind you out. They don't give you anything, and they take everything. Right? When you present them with opportunities, they're going to kick the door in. So they're a very, very dangerous club. I felt like, what, we watched them very, very closely in the last month as being a potential host team. And the RPI just didn't quite turn out, and UC Santa Barbara got so hot that they kind of eliminated them from the equation from that standpoint. But Oregon State is a team we've covered very heavily, watched very closely. When that offense is clicking, it is arguably the best offense in the nation. So it's great to see the Beavers, and regional back in Corvallis is always exciting.
I'm going to guess, Coach, you're talking about Jacob Myers, who 69 in the third inning struck out 105 at Nichols. I'm going to guess that may be the arm you're talking about. So there's an arm to look out for. Let's bounce quickly to NC State. South Carolina visits. JMU is there. Bryant is there as well. The NC State Regional, Cozy. That's right in your backyard.
Yeah, we're going to be able to get to see that with my middle son there. So excited for Elliot Avent to be able to get back in position to host a regional for sure. It's interesting. They basically reversed the field from last year. NC State was the 2 seed in Columbia last year. So now the Gamecocks return the favor to Raleigh as the 2 seed. And again, it's another one of those SEC, ACC matchups in the 1 and 2 here. But what about James Madison? A program that has just steadily gotten better. There was a mix, and Sutton and I talked about this earlier, Coach Jackson, about the Sun Belt, or the Fun Belt, as we like to call it, and the job that they have done there, where there were legitimately 6 teams being considered for the NCAA tournament. But it's great to see James Madison get themselves on the map, and Bryant is just a consistent grinder. They come out of that league every year. And this is by no means an easy regional. I was excited to see NC State get the 10 seed, but to pick up South Carolina, who, played really, really good in the SEC tournament, it's going to be a tall task for sure.
Yeah, like you said, I think that regional's full of, when you look at Bryan and JMU, some grinders, and some teams that if you underestimate them, they'll punch you in the mouth. And like you said, the Sun Belt is just as much of a beast as any other conference out there. And so to be able to grind through that thing is amazing. And so obviously NC State being at home, South Carolina, again, another team that we played this year, got 1, had a chance to get 2, came up short. They're starting to figure themselves out there towards the end, specifically once they got into the conference tournament. So it seems like they're ticking and moving in the right direction. So another exciting regional to be able to watch.
Kerrick, Charlie Condon, 35 home runs. Corey Collins, 18 home runs. Same roster. Drew Burris of Georgia Tech, 23 home runs. He was at his prom a year ago. That's at Georgia Tech. UNCW, and then Army, who, by the way, has the 17th best ERA in the country. 17th best ERA in the nation. That's got to be considered. So let's go there. Let's go to Georgia. We'll bring you with us, Kerrick. Tell us what's going on in Athens at that regional, please.
That lineup is a beast. From top to bottom, I still have nightmares with Condon, it's almost one of those deals you just throw him down the middle early and hope that he gets your rollover, and the chances of that aren't that good. So, but yeah, that if you pitch around him, then they got other guys that can hurt you. They piece some things together from a pitching standpoint and play just really good baseball. But that lineup is outstanding, and that's obviously what will put them in a good position. And again, another team that playing at home, he was able to, in a short window, recruit to that park, and it's manifested itself this year with what they're doing there specifically. And so, yeah, when you talk about some of the other teams that are in that regional, again, just another one that's going to be very competitive, and who's going to throw first blows.
Yeah. I mean, so you got Georgia with 140 home runs, UNC Wilmington 85, Georgia Tech 90, and yes, Army can pitch, but man, that is a launching pad. So it's going to be an
Yes.
exciting regional for sure. And why are we not talking about Randy Hood, the head coach at UNC Wilmington, year in and year out, puts together a great club. They're a 2 seed. So I don't know if people are coming after him or not when some of these bigger jobs come open, but Randy Hood is one of the best. And I can't imagine that Wilmington would let him get away. But that guy's a special, special coach and always puts the great club together.
All right, let's pause. We got one more run to go. We've got a handful of regionals left. The insights are incredible. And we're talking about the road to Omaha and Perfect Game College Baseball, presented by Soldier Sports, the official bat of Perfect Game. For a minute. Guys, this is the final run, and I appreciate your time, both of you, out on the road and on a holiday for you, Kerrick. We brought you inside. We might have melted your phone on a barbecue day, so we appreciate you hanging out. Let's move quickly because, and I'm going to let Cozy, you start with this one because this one piqued your interest with Bakich and Corbin hanging out together one more time. That one's in Clemson with Clemson, Vanderbilt, Coastal Carolina. We know that's never a boring visit from them. And then High Point, you know all too well, High Point with their first ever trip to the NCAA tournament. Joey Hammond, their head coach. Your thoughts, Coach?
Yeah, it's great to see Clemson hosting again. They had an unbelievable run last year, and it was cut short by Tennessee in the Super Regional. Felt like they were probably an Omaha caliber team. I did not necessarily think they were an Omaha caliber team this year. No offense. I got it wrong. Here they are, the national 6th seed. But, yeah, it's great to see Vanderbilt land in that regional. Tim Corbin, of course, cut his teeth under Jack Leggett at Clemson back in the day, built that thing into the national power that it is in today's day and time. Eric Bakich, of course, got his start at Vanderbilt underneath Tim Corbin. And guess what? Eric Bakich, once he gets the job at Clemson, who does he bring back as a special advisor? Jack Leggett, right? So there's just so many awesome tie-ins right there just from those top 2 seeds. Great to see Gary Gilmore get a bid. His last go-around, his swan song right here. So let's see what the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers can do with it. And then High Point, making their first ever appearance in the NCAA tournament. Got a tall task right there with those 3 monsters, but they'll get in and mix it up and see what they can do with it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the storylines there for that regional specifically are probably some of the best when, you got Gilmore on his last year and then you got, Corbin coming back and maybe not one of their strongest teams, but, it's the student and the teacher just kind of revolving around each other and that whole thing there. So that'll be a very interesting regional. And again, Vanderbilt's one of those teams that the expectation is there to win. So they're going to be competitive in that thing. And then when you just look at what Eric is able to do coming in there in a short period of time of getting them back to where they need to be and playing the way that they need to play. I only got to see them play once this year was when they played Georgia in that barn burner that kept going back and forth and nobody wanted to win it. But again, they've done a good job and he's done a good job and will continue to do a good job. So that'll be a very interesting regional to watch.
The Stillwater Regional. And Kerrick, it's got Coach Holliday's team hosting. Will Bolt's team wins the Big Ten. We get to see Jack Caglione represent Florida, who bounced back from that gut punch they took from St. John's to open the year. Florida comes all the way back to their spot. And then the winner of the Atlantic is Niagara. You're thrilled for teams like that with Coach McCoy, Rob McCoy. But when you take a look at Coach Holliday's regional, Kerrick, what are your thoughts as you jet into town?
Again, it's another one of those places I remember from back in college. And obviously I know it's a new stadium in Oklahoma State, but that was a place that, if you hear that Gap Band song one more time, you drop the bomb on me. It kind of hurts your feelings a little bit, but yeah, no, I think that, Florida, I think they're a dangerous team. Obviously there was talks about whether or not they should or shouldn't. And, again, as we talked earlier, we were able to get them earlier in the year. But again, when you got Cags on there, a dude that can change the game on both sides of the ball, you always put yourself in a really, really good situation. So Oklahoma State obviously has continued to have it rolling, and they're doing a good job. And so, again, another one of those regionals that's going to be pretty deep.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how Nebraska matches up, in this regional because they played very consistently throughout the year, obviously win the Big Ten. I'm excited for what Coach Bolt has built there. To see the Huskers kind of back in that national level prominence is exciting. You have one of the best two-way players. Well, you could arguably say that you have the two best two-way players in the nation with Jack Caglione and Carson Benz there at Oklahoma State. So that's going to be exciting to watch. But for all the naysayers out there about the University of Florida, the committee said one of their strong considerations was strength of schedule. Well, guess who had the number one strength of schedule in the nation? Florida Gators. So that's what it came down to. They had to have a winning record. They went to Georgia the last series of the year and won 2 out of 3 when Georgia was playing as good as anybody in the country. And that allowed them to stay one game above 500. And so they got the bid. Now, they're dangerous. All the pressure's off. All the stress is off. So watch out for the Florida Gators. But I think Oklahoma State also is playing like one of the best teams in the nation as they just ran through the Big 12 tournament.
So I want to go to Santa Barbara. Everybody wants to go to Santa Barbara. Coach Checkett's one of my more unique interviews. As a matter of fact, this is 2 of my favorite coach interviews. Coach Waz at Oregon, who's never been boring a day in his life, and Coach Checkett's, who's a pitching mind. They almost didn't get their turf. They had to go through all kinds of battles, coastal commissions, all these things that I never thought had anything to do with college baseball, but they got their turf, and they're hosting. They don't have to go play in some single-A Cal League ballpark. They're hosting Santa Barbara. Oregon is there. San Diego is there. By the way, check out Jacob Christian. You know, he's a guy with 23 home runs for San Diego. You want to check him out in the regionals. And the Mountain West champs. Mountain West only have 1 team. I hope that changes someday for them. This is a good athletic conference. Anyway, UCSB, San Diego, Oregon, Fresno State, Cozy, go.
Yeah. Well, the Gauchos, right, had a ton of early season helium. I think we had them ranked inside the top 20, if not the top 15 preseason on the strength of their arms. And, you never know how a team's going to react to that. They kind of fell on their face a little bit early, but as Coach Check always does with his team, he stabilized the ship. He got them going in the right direction, and they turned themselves into a monster. So you're glad to see them hosting. That's what should happen. My only disappointment with this entire regional is the fact that it is all entirely West Coast. And I feel like you're losing the opportunity for 2 teams that could potentially get to the Super Regional and beyond with San Diego as well as Oregon. And who knows what Fresno State can do. They can swing the bat. All right. They can absolutely put up runs in bunches. I think they won the championship game of the Mountain West 19-11. Is that what it was? So they're going to put up runs in bunches. Coach Waz always does a good job. Glad to see the Ducks there. That guy's a worker. I remember when I was working the USA trials, we had to go indoors for workouts at 8 o'clock in the morning, off site because of the rain. And guess who beat us to the indoor place? Waz did. That's how much that guy works from a recruiting standpoint, and that's why they get the job done up there in that Northwest. So, like I said, my only regret is the fact that we have 4 quality West Coast teams all stuck in that region, and only one's going to advance.
Yeah, I think, again, we talk about Coach Checkett's and what his teams are. It's another program that he knows who they are. They recruit to that. And if you don't fit, you don't stay there long. And so, that's why he's been able to have the success that he's had. Like you said, Waz obviously has done a great job recruiting and getting Oregon to where it is and where it will continue to grow to. And again, I agree with you on the idea of the West Coast teams. I know that was one of the things that in 2019 when I was at Southern and we won the SWAC championship, the first thing I did was sent the committee an email. Please do not send us to Baton Rouge. Don't ruin that. Don't ruin the opportunity for our kids for what they work for of just sticking us in some place that we're familiar with. And so obviously I know finances factor into that, but I think you're able to answer some more questions if you start moving teams around and you take teams that I know originally was regionals, but we've gotten out of that. So let's move some teams around so we can really, really find out where the best baseball is played and who the best 8 will be that end up in Omaha.
UC Santa Barbara with a 4.01 ERA on the year, the identical ERA to Texas A&M. They both pitched to a 4.01. That's a little bit more impressive for Schloss's team, just if you consider the weather than not that thick Pacific air. So let's go to that Texas A&M regional and College Station. Coach Deggs and the Raging Cajuns are there. Coach Pierce and Texas is there. And Devin Pierre's Grambling team. I swear, if there was anything more fun a couple hours ago than seeing the Grambling team celebrate on their bus and to celebrate technology. Kerrick, you coached in this conference. You contributed to the growth of athletes in this conference. I want you to talk about this regional, but first, how much fun was it to see that shot? Do both. Talk about the regional, but also Grambling celebrating. They were amazing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think anytime that you can be in a situation, specifically as an HBCU, and you know you're going to a regional, it's an exciting time, and again, it is what it is when you talk about the circumstances. You got everybody else kind of sitting in either a restaurant or their suite area or their locker room, and sometimes when you're in an HBCU, they're in the SWAC, you are where you are, and if it was on the bus and they were going to celebrate it. And so I promise you, the rest of that bus ride was tremendous. Getting back to Grambling, Louisiana. So, but yeah, that regional again. Fortunately for us, that was one of the beasts that we did not have to play in the SEC this year was Texas A&M. But just watching how they rolled through it and how successful they were and how dominant they were just across the board with that, and then when you got Lafayette and what they were done there again, another one of those Louisiana teams that has a chip on their shoulder. They know who they are. They know how they're going to go about their business and put themselves in a situation where they're going to be a dangerous club going in there. But I will tell you from past experiences that Olsen magic is real. And it'll, they start blowing them bubbles and they start, swaying back and forth, and that thing can change. But it's one of those great environments because I think the fans there truly appreciate good baseball. And so, yeah, they're rooting for their team, but if you play good baseball, they're going to acknowledge that. So that'll probably be one of the more fun regionals environment-wise that we got going on during this postseason.
Yeah, Schloss has got it going on. Max Wiener came in there from the Seattle Mariners to take over the pitching program. They've seen great results from that right away at Texas A&M. Pretty sure they're 33-2 at home this year, and the committee got it right by sending the Texas Longhorns to this regional right here. So obviously that is going to be a madhouse if that matchup happens between the Aggies and the Longhorns. And all the Raging Cajuns did was win the regular season. In the Fun Belt, right, or the Sun Belt as we call it. So yeah, this is no cakewalk whatsoever for Texas A&M. But you know what? It's going to be a ton of fun.
So I'm gonna thank you both for your insights. This isn't a show without either one of you. We know that. We're better for it. It's fun. It's insightful. You guys have lived it. You've breathed it. You've eaten it. Kerrick, you're still doing it on a daily. I guess I'll ask you this. I don't want to put you on the spot. Hey, give me who's doing this. Give me 2 locks to go. Cozy, I'll let you start. 2 locks to go to Omaha and 1 big surprise. I need 2 locks and 1 big surprise.
Well, I'm going to go with the easy pick. The lock is obviously the Tennessee Volunteers with what they're doing right now. They feel like an absolute lock for me. You know what? I think that the Georgia Bulldogs are a lock. I think that they're going to be able to swing their way there. Yeah, they bailed out of the SEC tournament after 1 game, but that's the way it goes sometimes. And that was just a little blip on the radar. And the surprise, I got to go with the NC State Wolfpack, right? I got to go with my blood and my pride right there with my son playing there. So let's get Elliot Avent back to Omaha and see what they can do with it.
You want to play, Kerrick? Do you want to play this game?
Yeah, so obviously I'll catch a lot of flack for being SEC biased here, but I agree with Tennessee. I would say the other one for me that would probably be a lock would be Texas A&M. And I think the surprise, just because of the time that they haven't been there and where they were last year, for me is going to be Florida State.
Wow. Why would you get flack for supporting your own conference? You deal with them. No one's listening. I'm not listening to that flack. I can't give you any flack. Hey, Kerrick, thank you. Thank you. You joined us on what should be a family off day for a bit. Apologize to your family if we kept you too long. Man, Mizzou in great hands, and we appreciate your time for joining us.
No, I appreciate you guys for having me on.
Best of luck, Kerrick.
Cozy, your insight's incredible. We want to remind everyone that we'll be at the College World Series. We'll be in Omaha thanks to Soldier Sports, the official bat of Perfect Game. We'll be there. We'll have great conversations. Maybe Kerrick will be there and have a deeper conversation about his program. Thanks for joining us on the road to Omaha, presented by Soldier Sports, the official bat of Perfect Game. Enjoy all the games now.